families, and fellow staff members. Since 2001, our speaker has been involved with several faith-based justice movements, including Fellowship of Reconciliation and the Interfaith Coalition for Immigrant Justice. He has worked in solidarity with Occupy Wall Street and Black Lives Matter Louisville. He is a former organizer with Power Interfaith, where he organized with congregations in Northwest Philly around affordable housing and opposing gentrification. Today's featured presenter currently lives in West Philly and organizes for Palestinian liberation and an end to U.S. militarism with Christians for Free Palestine and Jewish Voice for Peace. Please give a warm welcome to Rev Matthew Arlyck.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for being here. So as Terry said, I am a hospital chaplain here in Philadelphia and an ordained minister in the Presbyterian Church. And so I've been organizing with JVP, with Jewish Voice for Peace, since October of last year. And in January, I began working with Christians for Free Palestine. And so I was invited here to talk a little bit about CFP. So Christians for Free Palestine is a national grassroots organization that began at the start of this year as Christians of conscience around the country, many of whom were already deeply involved in the struggle for Palestinian liberation, realized that since October 7th, there had been no concrete effort by Christians to articulate our particular witness and accountability with regards to the genocide in Gaza. And so in January, this handful of Christians across the country began organizing other Christians to stand for Palestinian liberation by calling out the threat of Christian Zionism, which is inextricably linked with the formation and perpetuation of Israel as an apartheid state. And so we as CFP held our first major action in Washington, D.C. back in April. We held an ecumenical worship service outside the Capitol building, and then a group of us covertly infiltrated the Senate cafeteria and through a nonviolent direct action successfully blockaded the cafeteria in prayer, chanting, and song. And our message to the nation's capital and to the world was that no legislator would eat while Gaza starved. However, a much larger and much more powerful Christian organization was on its way to DC that summer. Christians United for Israel, or CUFI, is a Christian Zionist organization and the largest pro-Israel lobby in the United States. You heard that right. It's not AIPAC. CUFI boasts a membership of 10 million people, which means that there are more people in that organization than there are Jews in America total. And CUFI promotes anti-Semitic Christian Zionist theology, in which all Jews will return to Israel to rebuild the temple, which will then hasten Jesus' second coming. These Christian Zionists believe that in those end times, a third of those Jews will convert and be raptured into heaven, while the other two-thirds will go to hell with all the other unsaved people. And this organization was headed to DC for its annual summit. And so some of our core organizers had confronted CUFI years ago, and CFP was determined to do it bigger and broader this time. So thus, the Interfaith Action for Palestine came together. Over the course of just 2 days in July, hundreds of people from 11 organizations of all faiths held 10 separate actions, including, but not limited to, a blockade of a Crew 5 bus that was headed to lobby legislators, an infiltration and disruption of Crew 5's conference, while simultaneously a chorus gathered and sang in the conference lobby, and a direct action sit-in in the Senate building. There was even a group late that first day that rode kayaks onto the Potomac River. And I want you to just sort of picture this for a moment. They rode kayaks out onto the Potomac River with giant letters on their kayaks spelling out "Kufi kills," right in view of the summit attendees. One Kufi attendee that weekend was overheard saying, "These people are everywhere." So, I was part of the team that infiltrated the conference, and I can tell you, friends, that it was terrifying. Not only because of the threat of violence or arrest, but also because what I witnessed inside was very disturbing. We went in separated into small groups and blended in with the crowd in the auditorium. And as attendees chatted amiably with us on giant screens at the front of the stage, U.S. and Israeli flags flapped in the digital breeze, while videos of tanks demolishing buildings and armed IDF soldiers marching through Gaza were proudly displayed on a loop. And when Kufi's leader, John Hagee, who's been quoted in the past as saying that Hitler was, quote, a hunter sent by God to chase the Jews back to Israel, when Hagee took to the stage, he began with a prayer that asked God to pour out his vengeance on the enemies of Zion. It was, as my comrade Jacob recently said, the literal weaponization of Scripture. Here's the good news. That chorus that was singing in the lobby caused the conference to be delayed by 30 minutes as attendees were ushered around the building to avoid encountering the voices singing for peace and justice in Palestine. And our team, clandestinely dispersed in 5 groups throughout the conference, managed to stand up on our chairs and disrupt Hagee's speech all 5 times before the last group was finally removed by security. But friends, we can't kid ourselves. Groups like Kufi are incredibly powerful. They spend millions every year lobbying legislators like Fettermans to continue supporting the state of Israel and its occupation, all to fulfill their sick, apocalyptic, end-time theology. This theology, along with the military-industrial complex and a politic of fear-mongering and scarcity, form the pillars of an empire that can seem completely invulnerable. As the Christian Palestinian theologian Mitri Raheb says, Palestine, unfortunately, has always been occupied. But the other good news is this. None of those empires, not the Assyrians, not the Babylonians, not the Persians, not the Greeks, not the Romans, not the Ottomans, none of them lasted. And this current colonial empire of the U.S. and Britain, with the state of Israel as its proxy, won't last in Palestine either. But friends, we can't wait. We can't wait for this empire to just recede from Gaza and the West Bank like a corrupt tide. Palestinians, as you well know, are dying every day, right here right now, in this very moment that we are here, Palestinians are dying. So I have two asks of you today. I would be a good organizer if I didn't have an ask, so I do have some asks. So the first ask is, if what you've heard about CFP and the work we're doing moves you, please consider supporting the work. My Presbyterian denomination, PCUSA, is raising money right now to help provide 6-month contracts for 3 of our incredible CFP national organizers who have been doing this work since January for free. And I have a flyer. I do have a flyer here with me, which has a QR code on the back, which will lead you to the Presbyterian donation page, which is going to the CFP. And I have more in my bag that I can hand out to you. But the second ask I have for you is this: keep doing what you're doing here. You will likely, as we know, never change veterans' minds. I think we know just how in deep he is. But you are a reminder to every elected official that they cannot support genocide and occupation in the shadows. We will keep showing up to shine a light until all oppressed peoples are free. Free Palestine. One more lift up for Rev Matthew Arlyck.